Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of FECGTV, which stands for the Fisher Educational Consulting Group television channel. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, my name is Sean Fisher. I'm the proud CEO and owner of the Fisher Educational Consulting Group. For those of you that are also joining for the first time, let me take a moment to tell you a little bit about this channel. This channel was created to highlight the voices of educators of color and female educators, also education professionals that support marginalized student populations. What we do here is we survey the nation and we get questions, and we pose those questions to outstanding educators, and we try to get answers that we can share abroad to help people in our practice. I couldn't be more excited because today we have a phenomenal educator who addresses marginalized communities, communities of color. Also, she's a woman, so she has a unique perspective that will support the majority of our field, because as we know, almost 80% of education is taught by women. The majority of education is women, so we have her here. Our guest today is Mrs. Renee Farlow. I'm going to stop right there and just ask you, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
And we are so happy to have you. I know that this is like on your lunchtime, you're taking a moment to, teachers only have so much time, right? And it's precious. So you're taking that time to join us. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Awesome. Also, so for those of you that are new to the channel, let's talk about the format a little bit. We bring on awesome guests who have a wide breadth of knowledge of practice and theory. We pose to them approximately 9 questions. Some of those questions are 2 parts, some are single parts. We encourage our as much as they feel necessary. We don't cut answers short, because the information that you provide, the extra information, may be the difference in someone's practice being more successful than it already is. So with that being said, because we have a hard topic, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the interview. Are you ready, Renee?
I am, thank you.
Yep. And actually, everyone, I want to make an adjustment. This is not an interview. She already has the job. We're just going to have a conversation about practice. All right, so let's go ahead and start. I know you're familiar with this question. So tell us a little bit about you, both personally and professionally, to include your current role, what you're doing, and maybe what brought you to the field. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So I am a mom and a wife. I have 2 children. So that keeps me busy, but my professional part of my career, I started teaching in 2003. I taught in West Bloomfield, which is a very diverse community. I taught preschool there for 4 years, and I was hired in a time where it was very hard to get a teaching job. So I had an opportunity to then move to India, making more than I would be teaching, to be a personal nanny for a family. And I thought it would just be a fun experience. I wasn't married yet, didn't have kids. So I moved to India, and when I came back, it was really hard to find a teaching job. So I didn't teach for about 5 years. And then I went back into the field. I taught kindergarten. I started in Detroit, and then I soon realized that pre-kindergarten is my passion. So I went back to a preschool program in Detroit. It was a program that was for the failing schools in Detroit. And from there, I was absorbed back into Detroit Public Schools, and I worked there another 4 years. So I was in Detroit about 9 years, and taught preschool the whole time. And then I had the opportunity to move to Dearborn Public Schools, which I currently am now, and I've been here for the last 4 years. Very different community than in Detroit, but same kind of passion and love for the program. So.
Wow, thank you. So for those of you out there listening, you can tell why we have her here, a breadth of experience. She's worked with diverse populations. She's worked in the U.S., outside the U.S., so she has a global perspective. So the information we're going to get from her today is going to be super valuable. I mean, it already has been. So unique perspective of being a mom and a wife. So balancing that personal life and that professional life. Because we know many educators are partnered. and they have children. So she's going to provide that unique lens as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this has been going on a lot. So what do you notice different about teaching before the pandemic and post-pandemic?
The thing I noticed the most is the social emotional aspect in children, especially in young children. I've noticed, obviously the year of COVID, we didn't teach in the classroom. So that trying to teach 4-year-olds online, that was very interesting. And then moving then into the classroom, and they just were like, they were socially distancing. They didn't want to, play with another child. They didn't know how to do that. And as the last 4 years have gone, I've noticed the social emotional aspect in children is really much lower than it would have been pre-pandemic, because they weren't exposed to, those interactions that they would have. There was no, mommy tot times at the library. There was no playing at the playgrounds. They didn't have those interactions. They didn't go to people's house and interact with another. So it has taken my students extra time to be able to make connections with other kids.
Okay. So I hear you saying that they're a little bit socially, emotionally disadvantaged now.
Yes, very much
Okay.
so.
Have you, along those same lines, have you seen any differences academically?
Academically is about the same. When the pandemic started, I was working in Detroit. And the program I work for is the state-funded program. It's called GSRP currently. And so they're the families that are most in need. So the different, things that they're in need of in the 2 districts that I'm at. But oftentimes the need is because their academics are a little lower, because their parents either don't know how to teach them or don't know the importance of teaching them at home. So that kind of stayed the same, because I feel like they were at home more. So, if they weren't getting that before at home, they still were not getting it during the pandemic or after it. So that part I didn't see change as much, just mainly the social aspect of it.
Okay, that makes sense. You're saying because they already have some existing academic barriers.
Yes.
So that just persisted as normal business.
Yes, exactly. So.
Okay. Now, along those same lines, how have you seen poverty or economic disadvantagement? How does that impact your students?
That I think I have seen the most in this program, especially. But it has made me a much better teacher, because I didn't realize or maybe understand that until I started working in this program. And in this program, it's a requirement for us to go on home visits. So going to their home and seeing what their home life is like, it really just gives you a different understanding of, why they might be the way they are or behave the way that they do. And it really just helped me to become a better educator, because I was able to help them in different ways that I wouldn't have probably thought of, because I didn't have that in my life experiences.
I wonder if I could push you to go a little bit deeper. So what are you seeing as far as I listened to you, and it sounds like you've had the experience of teaching in I think you said West Bloomfield, which is a more affluent,
Yes.
I would say affluent district.
Yes.
Versus a couple of your districts being less affluent.
Yes.
So what have you seen? How has poverty impacted your students' learning? Like, how does it show up?
Well, for example, in West Bloomfield, if I would say to a parent, oh, their letter recognition is a little bit low, the parent would go and buy the things they need and do the things they need because they had that ability. For a family, and like I said, I've been to their home, so a family that doesn't have furniture or doesn't have the food their children need, they're not going to go out and buy the letters that they need. And not that they don't want to, they definitely want their kids to learn. They just don't have the means. So seeing that helped me to understand, and it helped me to understand, well, they're not going to be able to do this, so I'm going to make it for them. So over the years, I've learned how to make a lot of manipulatives for children that are just like free materials, bottle caps, whatever I can find, something discounted. And then I make it into what they need to learn at home. And then I started making them for the families, or having parent meetings where they could make them with me and they would use those materials.
Okay, I was writing down my notes here. So what I heard you say, it sounds like parents, first thing is parents, and I won't explain this part clearly. So parents, no matter race, color, affluent, not affluent, they want to see their students succeed.
Yes, definitely.
Yep. However, if they're in poverty, have economic issues, it impacts the resources they have to maybe, help their students go further.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Also motivated you as a teacher to try to find other ways to kind of disrupt that poverty.
Yes, definitely. And I wouldn't have learned that without working in those experiences, those situations, areas.
Okay, so it sounds like that diversity of wealth, having some and not, has grown you would
Yes,
say.
definitely.
Okay, tremendous. Thank you.
It's hard for you emotionally, but it's really good for you, for your, it helped me to be a better teacher.
Well, I can only imagine, as you didn't get into teaching because you didn't care. So
Exactly.
yeah. Or did you get into it for the money? You got into it for the money, right?
The billions.
Yeah. And you're a mom too, so you definitely care. When you see children suffering or going without it,
Yes.
It's personal.
Exactly. Yes, for sure.
Okay. Yep. So along these same lines, we've been talking about the impact of the pandemic. We've been talking about poverty and its effect. Under that same umbrella, I want to ask you, what does the term equity mean to you?
So I think in the preschool level, I really make an effort to make sure each student is learning at their own level, especially in early childhood. From birth to 5 years old is when the brain develops the most. So every child is very different from one another. Every student is learning at a different rate. So I really make it a goal of mine every week when I'm planning to make sure my instruction is very differentiated, that it's something that they're interested in, so they want to, do it, and that it's still fun for them. So it's hard to, make a 4-year-old play with something they don't want to. So I just make it really fun. My goal every day is for the child to leave and say that they played, and I'm happy, because that means they were learning, they were doing what, I wanted them to do, and they just thought they were playing the whole time. So I think differentiating is really important, especially at this age, in all the grades. But, for them to each have that equality, they each need what they need, not what the other person next to them needs. So to make it equal, I have to make it very diverse.
No, perfect. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to press you a little bit more, because you use some phenomenal teacher vocabulary there. For our audience are what we would call pre-service teachers. So they're still in school, they haven't gotten there yet. So when you say differentiate, what do you mean?
For example, for one of my lessons, we're doing patterns. So for one student that is still at just lining things up, maybe their materials are a little bit less, because it would be overwhelming to give them more material. They wouldn't know what to do with it. For a child that can make a ABC pattern already, they would have more materials, or maybe a little bit slightly different materials to extend their learning.
Okay, so I hear you saying you kind of meet students where they're at,
Yes,
or you design lessons for them and their needs.
exactly.
Okay, perfect. And that's something that educators should be doing.
Definitely. It's a lot of
Okay.
extra work, but I have learned in my 14 years to, put things together and keep them together and organize them so that when I'm ready for that, I just pull it out and use it.
The planning.
Yeah,
Okay.
planning is key.
Okay, too. So it does get a little bit easier. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, definitely.
All right, new teachers and pre-teachers, you hear that? There's light at the end of the tunnel. And also make sure you tap your veteran teachers like Renee so you can give you some tips so you're not reinventing the wheel.
That's right.
All right, so are you ready to go a little bit deeper?
Yes.
Okay, we're moving more into the equity piece of the interview, or conversation rather. I have to check myself. So I want to read this one verbatim. So does race, origin, and color impact your students' education experience?
I think it does impact their experience. We would like to think that it doesn't, but over the years in the different communities I've worked at, I think it really does. I will say the younger students don't see it like the older students do. I think it's definitely, learned in their families. And for example, I did a lesson, I read a book, and we talked about differences in people. And every student was just like, oh, their hair color is different. Their clothes are different. They weren't, not one student said, oh, his skin color is different, or, their nationality is different. They just notice things that look different at the younger age. But I think it does, every culture, has their own experiences, their own rituals. So of course it's going to, even now I work in a Muslim community, but they're all from different countries in the Middle East. So their cultures are a little bit different, even though maybe their religion is all the same. Culturally, it's still a little bit different, the foods or the way they do things in their household. So I think it just naturally will trickle into your classroom. And their experiences are different because of it. For example, myself, I grew up in a Chaldean household, and my experiences were very different. I grew up in a population that was all Caucasian. My friend and I were the only Chaldeans, so we had very different experiences. Our parents were different. They were stricter than our friends, and those things just naturally will trickle into your classroom because that's their experiences. That's what they're bringing to you.
I want to, something you said that I want to dwell on for a moment. So you mentioned that you are Chaldean.
Yes.
Chaldean is a very small and specific population that many people might not know about. Could you tell us a little bit about the Chaldean community?
Yes. So Chaldeans are basically one of the only Christian communities in Iraq. There's not many of them now in Iraq. A lot of them have been driven out. But my parents were both born right near Baghdad. They were born in a village called Talkath. So they lived there until my dad was 25 and my mom was 21, or a couple of years older. And they had 2 kids at the time, and then they moved to the United States for a better life for us. So yeah, it's a very small community in Iraq, but there's a very large population in Michigan, and there's a very large population in California. But anywhere else you say you're Chaldean, they probably wouldn't know what that means.
Okay. And I think I heard you say Chaldeans are Christian. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So Iraq is mainly a Muslim country, but Chaldeans are the only Christians in it.
And thank you. I wanted to highlight that because it speaks the diversity in the Middle East. Some people may fall victim to the stereotype or the ignorance of just not knowing that the entire Middle East is not Muslim.
Exactly. And growing up, I was bullied, to an extent about, people always thought I was since I was from the Middle East, that I was Muslim, and yeah, they just don't understand the difference, I guess.
And definitely there's some space for cultural education. I mean, we all
Yes.
can grow. So.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I was trying to highlight, just, the diversity. And so thank you for being vulnerable and speaking to that.
Yes.
And I'm sure you bring some of those experiences in a good way to your practice.
Yes,
So.
definitely. Yes. Especially now working in a, more Muslim community, teaching the kids, like, because I look like them. Because, we're from the Middle East. But, teaching them the differences of our beliefs, or, different cultural things we might do is, it's fun to teach them those things.
Yeah, and doing it in a space that you created that's safe as well.
Exactly. Yes.
Because you know how it is to not feel safe. Like you're saying, being bullied. Yeah.
Exactly.
You understand the importance of it.
Exactly.
Oh, sorry, I said you. Okay. Okay. So going along with that equity mantra, with an ever diversifying student body, please tell us your strategies for creating a sense of classroom community or togetherness.
So I think it's important, especially in early childhood, to just teach the children everything. I read all different types of books. I read about all different cultures. I read about all different types of people, different families. I don't, just because I'm in a large Muslim community, I don't just read books about Muslims. I talk about all the different holidays. We talk about all the different things, especially for 4-year-olds. They've only had 4 years of experiences in their life, right? So they've only had 4 Eids, they've only had 4 Christmases, 4 Halloweens. And the year before they were 3, they might not have really remembered it, and they probably don't remember the first 2 years of their life. So for young children, especially, every new celebration, holiday, whatever, is a totally new experience for them, because they, like I said, they might not have remembered it or celebrated. So it's fun to teach them all the different things. So I don't make it like a point where I'm like, oh, this is Christmas and this is what you do. It's more like just a conversation, or an experience that we have in the classroom, a book that we read. So I just kind of put it into our everyday kind of conversations.
Okay, so it sounds like I hear you saying that one of the ways you create community or bringing your classroom together is by increasing their experience. I can't talk today, sorry. Increasing their experiences.
Yes, exactly.
And you do that by, it sounds like you intentionally planned lessons for them.
Yes.
But things that they might not have experienced prior.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. So I'm actually going to press you a little bit further. Could you share with the audience any strategies that you use for giving your students voice? Even though, they're preschoolers, they may be like 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a need for an opportunity for them to be heard. How do you create that?
Well, I think a thing that most parents and educators don't really understand maybe about early childhood is that they already have their own little personalities, and they do want to be heard. They want to tell you things, and they want you to understand. In the middle of a book, they might tell me something way off topic, but it's what they need and what they need to express at that time. So I maybe don't plan for those things, but I never discourage them. So whenever I see that they want to talk about something that, is bothering them, upsetting them, or just something they want to share with me, I always give them the time to say it and then elaborate if I need to, or they want me to on it. But I never discourage them from it.
Okay. So it sounds like you give them voice by literally letting them use their voice.
Yes, exactly. Which a lot of times people don't do that for kids that age. They think that, oh, they're just kids, they don't know, but they really do. And they want to be heard.
Yeah, and I'm glad that it's good to hear that teachers are transitioning from that old model of, I'm the boss and you're here to listen to me.
Yes, that is not my classroom.
And for a long time there was that mantra.
Yes.
I can remember as a kid, my parents telling me that children are to be seen and not heard.
Exactly.
So it's good to hear that we're pivoting away from that. Yeah, good. And I'm sure, a very quiet classroom is boring.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So let's keep on pushing on our equity mantra.
Okay.
So are you ready? This question's a little bit in depth. Are you ready?
Yes.
So in the United States, race and gender significantly impact personal outcomes. How has your race and gender, specifically being a woman of Middle Eastern descent, teaching in America, affected the way you do your job? I'm sorry. Let me clarify that.
Okay.
When I asked how, yeah, it's not, but it's dead. Whether it's start like someone making a judgment because Middle Eastern, you're a woman, or maybe you doing things differently because you're Middle Eastern and a woman, or of Middle Eastern descent. Let me correct my terminology.
I'm sorry, Sean. It cut you out on most of it, so I did not hear your question.
Oh, I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm now. So I wanted to qualify what I said. Speak to whether you being of Middle Eastern descent and a woman have impacted the way you do your job, whether it's come from outside, like someone judging you or creating barriers, or something that you changed in your own personal practice because of either being a woman or being Middle Eastern or both.
I think
the
one,
that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. The one thing is that growing up in a community that was, not maybe the same as me, I think that had a bit of an impact because I didn't have the same experiences as maybe other students around me. My parents came to a brand new country. They worked a lot to, provide for us. My mom, both my parents weren't really involved in my education. They, weren't able to go to like conferences or like tennis games because they were working. They were providing for us because they had their own struggles, being in a new country. So I didn't have a lot of those experiences, and I didn't realize, I guess, how sheltered I was until I went to college. I was the first. I have 4 siblings. I was the first one to go to college in my family. So both my parents only went to like the equivalent of like high school and middle school in Iraq. And then I have 3 older siblings that did more trades than they did college. So I was the first one. So it was a very different experience. It was very eye-opening. I realized, especially once I met my husband that is not Chaldean, he had way different experiences than I did growing up. He went on family vacations, just went out to eat. We didn't do that either. Like small things like that. It really, I didn't realize until I was older because, in the moment, you don't know that you're missing out or you're different from others. But then when I went to college, that's when I realized like, oh, This is different. And I started off, I just knew I loved children. I didn't ever think of becoming a teacher. It was not something that, was a thought to me. But then a counselor at college said, well, I was doing child psychology. And I was realizing that it was a little heavy for me, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to continue with that. And she said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I just love kids. I just want to help kids. And, she suggested to be a teacher. And it's just like the best thing I think that, could have happened. I love it. It's a great career. But I think that those not having those experiences was difficult for me. So I think I had to work a little bit harder than maybe someone else because I had, a bilingual home. I had to learn things a little more than maybe someone else had to, because some of that stuff was a little harder for me in my education. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. Thank you. Now, I wonder, just because this channel does target people of color, which you are, do you feel that your gender or your ethnicity, well, let me rephrase that, let me say it a different way. Have you ever been impacted by gender discrimination or racism in your practice as an educator, or do you feel it?
As an educator, I think maybe because there are so many women in education, and I have mainly been in early childhood, I don't find it in education. But in other parts of life, yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I know we have a hard stop for you, so I have one last question, then I have an activity for you, and then we'll close it out. So being the mid-career veteran that you are, 15, 14 years in the game,
yes.
What advice would you give to new teachers and or pre-service teachers?
Well, I've worked with a lot of newer teachers, especially in this program. And I love teaching them. I love teaching teachers almost more than I love teaching children. So I love it, but I feel that a lot of times it's overwhelming. It is a very overwhelming job. Yes, we have, 2 months off in the summer. Yes, we have breaks throughout. But when you are here, it is a lot of work, and it's really important to do the work and be very organized, and do whatever you can for children, because somebody really loves that child and they deserve all of you. So it's really important to just really work hard. And I know it's exhausting. I know it's a lot of work, but it is so worth it in the end.
No, thank you for that message. So I hear you saying, don't take shortcuts because your job is very important.
Exactly.
Don't cheat the kids.
Yes, for sure.
No, thank you. So we are coming up on the end. I don't have any other questions, but I do have no formal questions, but I do have an ask of you.
Okay.
So this channel focuses on diversity, and we talked about this a little bit pre-interview. So I want my audience to know that I don't just spring these activities on folks. So in our pre-interview work, you told me that you are actually, I guess I would say trilingual almost, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we always ask, in Southeastern Michigan, we have one of the largest Arabic speaking populations. And so we have a lot of listeners that are in that community, and Arabic is either their first language or it's a co-language. To your ability to, you care enough to reach out to your students and try to meet them where they're at and communicate with them.
Yes.
So, that's to be commended. Absolutely.
Yes, for sure. Because oftentimes I have students that come in speaking no English. So for them, I will do it.
Absolutely. No worries at all. Absolutely. I may Not that I'm going to ask you now, but how's your Aramaic? Your
I
Arabic?
understand most of it. Speaking it
Okay.
is more difficult. Yes.
Okay, so you're a listener more. Well, that's a good skill to have, listening, right?
Yes. I can speak, but I don't. It's hard to explain. I don't say the words correctly, so it's almost like a slang. So, and I never know if it's something that's offensive, so I never want to say it to an adult. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Okay, so we're at the point where we're going to wrap up. So I want to take this moment to say thank you, Renee, for joining us. I know that your time is precious and you are very busy. So the fact that you carved out almost an hour for us during your day, during your lunch, I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Our guest educator today was Renee Farlow, who is a pre-kindergarten teacher in southeastern Michigan. She teaches a majority Muslim population and majority color, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if you're just joining us, make sure that you listen to the whole interview. She shared some awesome strategies for creating safe spaces, building equity, and just overall being. So until we connect again in the next episode, I'm telling you all, have a great day and do great in your job because, as Renee said earlier, the kids deserve it. So don't cheat the kids.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.